I miss the drama of the politics, and like a lot of the politics were character driven. There wasn't, a variety of different news servers, and then like a military affairs server, and a channel for just bank stuff, a channel for just chatting, a channel for just like it almost feels like it's too compartmentalized. The media has been offered buyout offers from the other news servers. Basically, Guardian threatened to roll us for existing, so
That's
we
nice.
didn't follow through. We tried to force two alliances to merge into us by like military force. We would meet every Sunday at the mall and get food to talk about like our plans in the game.
Oh my god.
He just messaged me on Discord and was like, "Hey, can you do the spy op?" And I was like, "Sure." Clicked the link and did it. He had me slot filling spy ops, but he didn't tell me.
Oh, so
Yeah, and I got a strike because of it. And I was like, "Are you?" I didn't even know. Like, he didn't tell me. Like 6 to 7 of the 9 years that I played in Rose. Like, I don't know why they view it as like he must be rooting for our failure. Makes you have a newfound outlook on Epimetheus.
Yeah, he's the goat. I don't know how he does this. Yeah, so I'm just gonna start off here with why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, about politics and war, about where you came from, how long you've been playing, all that?
Yeah, so I'm pubstomper in game, or Umar on Discord. I've been playing Politics and War since the beta. I played speedround as well. I started March 25th of 2014, and it was with a bunch of my high school friends. We made an alliance called the Corn Shuckers, which eventually rebranded to the Atlas Confederacy, and eventually became Rose. And I was the first leader of Rose. After that, I did have a couple small projects where I was not a leader or the sole leader, but a founding member of the Golden Horde and World Wrestling Federation, which rebranded to TKR after I had left. Since then, I have founded and been one of the leaders of the Sword Coast.
You mentioned the beta, right? So politics and war actually didn't start at the full game, right? There was a beta for around half a year to a year.
Honestly, I'm not entirely. I missed the like very start. I think the first players was like October or November of 2013.
Yes.
And I started in March of 2014, near the end of March. And at the time, there was a lot of mechanics that weren't in the game yet. So alliances had banks. However, they were solely there for members to withdraw and deposit manually. There was no in-game method for taxing. There was no brackets that you could place. And there, I mean, everything was done on IRC. Discord didn't exist yet. So there wasn't really bots to automate any of that stuff. Yeah.
During the beta, or was this already when the full game was released?
That was during the beta. I believe they added in-game taxes by the time of the final reset, which was August of 2014. There was still not brackets back then, though. It was kind of a flat rate you could just set for everyone that was in the alliance. I'm not 100% sure when they added brackets, because it was during a time I wasn't super active that they did that.
To be clear, you've been playing the game for a long time, but you've had spurts of activity and then also long periods of inactivity. So,
I lost my First Nation in like spring of 2016, and ended up re-rolling and creating the current nation I have towards the end of 2016, at the very end of November. And I was decently active for 2016, kind of 2017. But what got me pulled back in from that lull was MPO's last time and the Golden Horde. We had launched the Golden Horde 1.0, and pretty soon after founding, we went to war in this war called Surf's Up, which ended up it was a mess because both sides in Surf's Up quickly decided, hey, instead of fighting each other, maybe we should go fight MPO. And then we had a 9-month war with that. After MPO's last time ended, the Golden Horde disbanded because the leader said he didn't want to do it for a bit. He needed a break after such a long war. And I went back to Rose, and I stayed pretty inactive in Rose until like 2023. But I did exist, and I didn't use VM for the most part. I generally would log in, but I wasn't Gov or anything like that.
You started off in the Corn Shuckers, which is
yes,
with a group of friends, and then we branded into Rose at some point.
There was a 2 week gap at the very start. Me and my friends, there was only four of us at the start from high school. We were in this micro called Global United Nations, which was the smallest alliance in a purple treaty, including UPN, Empire of Spades, and the Dutch East India Company. We only stayed for 2 weeks though, because eventually other kids at our school wanted to play, and we made an alliance called the Corn Shuckers, which was a protectorate of seven kingdoms.
Mhm.
We rebranded to the Atlas Confederacy after the World War Alpha to start Speed Round, and we kept the Atlas Confederacy until we became Rose in November of 2014.
So do any of those classmates also still play? Or
No,
all
not a
of them
single
left?
one.
You're the last one standing.
Not even
Oh,
a single one.
that's
A
very
couple of
sad.
them, a couple of them lasted for a while. They were in Rose for quite some time.
Hmm.
Um, One of the first ones I think of was a top 10 nation named Gorog, Gorog, and he maybe left around 2018,
Oh damn.
2019 ish.
So he was like one of the last ones. So that must have
He was
been.
he was the last one.
Oh
Yeah,
damn. Now you're the last one standing. That's quite impressive. But doesn't it like? Isn't it wild to think about? You've played this game for almost over 10 years at this point. Almost 11.
I know. It makes me
It's
feel
like,
old. We
yeah.
have new members joining who they're
When
like 16, right? So they
yeah.
were like 5 years old when
When
I
you
started
started,
playing.
yeah. Yeah, and then I'm here. It was just like I started like quite late, as you know. So
Hmm. It is weird too because when I started, I was the young kid. Yeah, like a
yeah.
lot of the other alliance leaders when I was a leader back then, they were
Hmm.
adults in their 20s. Like Prefontaine, Partisan,
Um,
Pfeiffer,
are there
Hans.
are there any like leaders like from that time who still play, or who's you like known for like since the start, basically?
Oh yeah. I think Hans and UPN is still around.
Because
Um,
for clarity, UPN was like what Rose is now, basically the biggest alliance for that period, or one of the biggest, and it always stayed at the top compared to like where they are now, where they are a smallish alliance full of veterans who
I
don't really play much.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It was kind of a different time.
Mm-hmm.
The massive member alliances weren't really a concern back then because the most competitive alliances I'd say were Guardian, Seven Kingdoms, and Dutch East India Company.
Yeah.
UPN was still competitive, but they were more mass member, whereas those other three were they aimed to have every member held to a high standard. So they didn't
Mm-hmm.
have as many members, but they were all large nations at the time.
Yeah, so they literally were the Rose of of back then, and being like,
Like UPN had enough big nations that they still
mm-hmm,
could compete with those others, but they also had a lot of
smallish and
like
inactive.
yeah, like new recruits and
Yeah.
and that stuff. Them and Empire of Spades were both that way though. Because Empire of Spades, when the TAC war kicked off, they were rank 2. UPN I think was rank
Yeah.
3 or 4, and then we were rank 1 at TAC before the war started.
And this was around 2014.
Yeah, this was the kickoff of the first like giant war after the final reset. The
Mm-hmm.
depending who you are. Some people call it the War of Purple Aggression. Some people just call it the TAC War. Um, but essentially, we were rank 1 and we got dogpiled by the rank 2, 3, and 5 alliances. The War of Purple Aggression is the TAC War.
Yeah, that's alright. Yeah, okay, sorry. It's confusing for someone who hasn't played back then to.
No, I get it. It was like a big debate at the time because they were like, "We're not the aggressors. We didn't start it," even though they did officially, like they declared the first wars.
Good to see that debates like that have been going for about 10 years plus at this point about whether CD is valid or not. Though I will say that nowadays it's not really as much of a factor anymore, right?
Like, there's no CB that's like clear other than like
Yeah.
Roseman bad.
Exactly. So.
Yeah, it's kind of a drag. I miss the drama of the politics and like a lot of the politics were character driven by the leaders of the top alliances. So there was a strong rivalry between me and the leader of Empire of Spades. And so I think a lot of the fuel for that war was driven through like my character and his character.
The reason the game was more easy to find today is probably because it was just a lot smaller. Like there weren't many people playing, so you didn't have like how many people. Like for example, Rose had how many members back then around when you were like
Probably like 80 to 90. Yeah, it's weird because you'd think with Discord people there'd be more of a like overarching community feeling. But if anything, it's less so than IRC.
Yeah.
Since there wasn't, variety of different news servers and then like military affairs server and a channel for just bank stuff, a channel for just chatting, a channel for just like it almost feels like it's too compartmentalized now.
Let me just ask you this: do you think that it actually was more active, or do you think because it was more compressed that it only looked more active? Having all these news servers behave like almost completely dead. If you just were to combine those to an active news server, it would be a lot better. But alas, that doesn't happen anymore.
It kind of does. They try. Inside info. So I'm in the media as one of the staff. Even though I just run an opinion article, the media has been offered buyout offers from the other news servers, but declined. And I would imagine they offer it to each other as well. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Royal Orbis News has tried to buy OCN, DNN, the media, others. I mean, we were offered not even by Ron, but by OCN to merge. Like they wanted to buy us, and we ended up not panning out. But they're smaller than Ron, so I would guess if one of them is trying to soak in all the rest, Ron would be the one, because that's probably the one I think has the most activity.
But it makes me wonder why they declined it, but that's beside the point. Get back a bit on topic then, because you say you were in a lot of alliances. You actually led Rose?
Yeah, twice. Well, the first time was from founding, November 2014.
Mm-hmm.
I went and looked at this once because I put it on my nation page. So for Rose, November 2014 to February 2015. So it was pretty short, but it kind of felt like more of a continuation from the Atlas Confederacy, because I had been leader of TAC from June to November 2014. And I retired, and in that window, we tried to start a failed high-tier alliance called the Rothschild, which failed. Basically, Guardian threatened to roll us for existing, so
That's nice.
we didn't follow through. And I ended up leaving back to Rose and became leader again in Rose in July of 2015, and I stayed leader until February of 2016.
As a leader, like, what did you exactly do and all that stuff? Because a lot of people, like, I don't know if departments even were a thing back then, as the way they are now, right? Like, you have FA, IA, MA.
Those have always been a thing.
Those have always been a thing?
Yeah, so when the Corn Shuckers was made, we were kind of an anomaly because most of the alliances here were from CN, or like from another game. There was like Guardian came from Lunar Wars. UPN was CN.
Mm-hmm.
Dutch East India Company was like a kind of CN. It was, I don't remember which one from CN. Iron was who Dutch East India Company was. We were just like, we just popped in, and it was really weird because we all knew each other in real life from being high school classmates together. To the point, we tried to force two alliances to merge into us by like military force, but we didn't really understand. Yeah. We didn't know that forums were a thing, and so we were just like playing the game. We were just doing what we thought was the norm. And then a bunch of the big alliances pretty much threatened us. But Seven Kingdoms reached out to me because they saw that I was decently active, and I started posting on the forums, but I was the only one. So we did have those positions, and then me and my friends in the Corn Shuckers they were in those positions, we would meet every Sunday at the mall and get food to talk about like our plans in the game.
Oh my god. That sounds so cool.
So Seven Kingdoms found out we did that. They were like, wait, you guys have an in-person meeting every week? And we were like, oh yeah, we just go grab Chick-fil-A. And they were like, we want to protect you, because they thought we had very high potential. And
that's very sweet.
So those positions have been around forever. As far as what I did the second term, a lot of it was Honestly, FA. Like you had your head of FA, but it was more like you'd work in conjunction with them, or I would. And my main one was Abbas, which sometimes burned me. But Abbas was a very connected player from other games, so it was good to have him. But sometimes he did burn us. Like he would place his trust in the wrong people, thinking they wouldn't do
Yeah.
something, and then they would. And
That's the name of the
on
game.
top of that, though, being leader, you just kind of make unilateral decisions a lot. I don't know, like it was not even just me, but like for example, Sketchy became leader a little bit after I did, and he decided, you know what, like Rose has too much bloat. We have too many members that don't do anything or aren't logging in. Back then, people wouldn't really kick inactive super quick because rating wasn't like a meta. Sketchy removed the inactives from Rose. He like halved the membership, and that was something he did as leader. Or like I would sign treaties, and then like as the leader, I would meet with Partisan, or we created Paragon, which technically Kigaz was the leader when we started, but Kigaz wasn't active, so I was the second in command, and just became leader like basically as Paragon started, which was a block between Viridian Entente, the Syndicate, and so I'm in a variety. Internal affairs. I didn't really touch econ too much just because I'm not smart, so I normally would leave econ to like whoever was in charge of econ and let them just kind of do their thing. Military, I definitely had strategies that like I would deploy, but I feel like I had a kind of a council who gave me advice or suggestions, and I would take the suggestions I liked. So during the war with TAC, when we had all those purple alliances fighting us, the color bonus used to work different. One of my advisors was like, why don't we bomb their color bonus? So I was like, that's a great idea. You go make one, and I'll send 10 members over, and I'm gonna like we'll create a bunch of purple colonies to bomb their color stock because they were beating us in the war.
People split off into small alliances with your low tier basically, and just.
Oh yeah. We had like 5 of them.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's
well, the color bonus used to be a lot. You used to be able to get it up to like 40 or 50%. And so the purple one was like, I think 40-ish when we started, and we got it down to like 10%. So we were taking away like a third of their income just by doing that.
That's devious, I won't lie.
Yeah, Sheepy changed the mechanic of color stock after that.
Probably, yeah. I can imagine why. But so basically as leader you just kind of just having the final say, is that really it? And then just having people do the work, and you kind of make sure everything's going properly, and that if people have any questions, they come to you and you decide like
yeah,
or what?
I'd say so. Yeah. A lot of the things just they're kind of different now. Like the method of having to train people to raid when they join, like that was just not a problem back then. More so you would just say like, hey, build like this. Raiding, there weren't enough nations to loot back then because they auto deleted after a month of inactivity, and they didn't start with the same amount of stuff they do now. They used to start with like 100k and like 50 of each resource, so it's not like you would have got that much out of them.
I think the activity center definitely screwed a bunch of that up.
100%.
The fact that it existed for so long.
Yeah, 100%. It for sure makes it like they're just pinatas at this point.
So is there also things you think have improved nowadays? Like for example, a lot of the tasks, to put it, are very automated, like you mentioned before. Do you think that's a good thing, or do you think that maybe that has also killed engagement a little bit?
Yeah, I think for the layman member, like just a casual player, it removed a lot of their autonomy for the econ side of things. And with the players that have been playing for a long time, that are playing those long-term strategies, focusing on return on investment, they're the ones that are government in these alliances. And so they kind of have a system in place that they just kind of have the members fall under. There's not as much freedom of like, oh, you can play econ build early on, you can play raid build early on, you could do this early on. It's all we already figured a lot out. And without new changes or updates to the mechanics, it's not like they're going to change.
Do you think that is maybe also is a reason why new player retention is like very low? Because they want to play 100%. The game their way, and then they just have to join, and then they get told, join a big alliance or you're not going to be able to do anything. and then they join a big alliance and they basically get told exactly what to do. And a lot of them just put them on 100 and send them like grants every so often. You log in like once or twice a day at most.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think it really kills for those new players, like their like learning experience, that like curiosity. They don't really get to have it. A handful of nations had missiles. No one had nukes. And there was actually a very big debate because I was going to just piece out Rose alone since I disagreed with Guardian and SK wanted to force UPN to decommission their missile pads. And I felt like that would kind of be bad.
Oh,
and
wow.
It would be too penalizing.
I mean, peace terms in general were a lot worse back then, I'd say. Like a lot more penalizing, or is it not? Or was it just a one-off?
Well, that was sort of the first, and I think that I'd like to think that because of me doing that, it set a standard. Because I've never seen terms like that since be proposed.
I mean, I remember how Strad tried to, when they were at war with the CTO, Carthago, and they tried to force them to stop producing food for a certain amount of time, and then that got leaked, and then like they got majorly outcasted for it briefly.
Yeah, I would imagine it's frowned upon.
Do you think that it's a good thing that we're just right piecing now? Or would you rather?
Yeah, I think it's fine. The wars are so costly as is that like if you lost a war,
yeah,
you've already lost so much that it's not.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see why like adding insult to injury is necessary.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you there. So maybe that's one thing they did improve upon by not actually having reps or punishing peace deals besides meme terms.
Mm-hmm.
Though I will say I do remember also when I was in Rose that they allowed a guy who got caught trying to buy spy ops from people.
Yeah, DTC.
Yeah, DTC. Yeah, he was just not allowed to buy spies for a certain amount of time, and then they got killed.
You know what? That's fair. I actually got a strike on my account because I listened to him. He just messaged me on Discord and was like, "Hey, can you do the spy op?" And I was like, "Sure." Clicked the link and did it. He had me slot filling spy ops, but he didn't tell me.
Wait, when was
and I
this?
got a strike on my nation years ago, probably like 2018, 2019. But yeah, and I got a strike because of it. And I was like, "Are you?" I didn't even know. Like, he didn't tell me. He just said, "Do this," and I was like, "Okay, cool. You're in Rose. Like, seems fine." And you know what?
Sorry.
I'm fine with him getting in trouble because he for sure. I mean, he got me in trouble by being reckless.
I mean, the thing is that sounds like such a DTC thing to do. Like, I don't know the guy that well, but from what I've seen, that sounds exactly like DTC.
I was kind of mad at him.
I can imagine.
Yeah, you fucker. Like, I wouldn't have done it if I knew you were using it to just fill slots. Like.
Now I'm gonna ask you something spicy here. You may, if you don't want to answer it, that's fine. But you did mention that you didn't really like the way Rose has gone in terms of how they operate. Do you still stand behind that?
I mean, I can't. It's hard to say now. I haven't really been there in a while, but.
When you were there, like you were there up until like a year.
Summer of 2023.
Yeah, like one.
I went to the media. Yeah, I went to the media, and to be honest, I had full intentions of going back to Rose after the media, but they had been so like assuming the worst of me when I went. Oh yeah, I mean, Abbas DM'd me and was like, "You need to act your status, and people look up to you. Like, I can't believe you're doing this." And then Callisto sent me a message, just kind of being like, "I don't see the point of this. Like, this is dumb. I don't know why you're doing it." And it just like was left a bad taste in my mouth. And I was like, "Why are you guys like so? You're either with us or against us about this." Especially because the media was just like a fun, high tier rating project. Like, it wasn't. We weren't even really that politically involved. Like, I don't know. I don't understand why it was such a big deal. That after the media was like, "Yeah, we're gonna go merge into Dark Brotherhood," I was like, you know what, fine. Like I don't want to go back if they're just gonna assume I'm betraying them every time I leave. And I've spent, at the time I'd played 9 years. I'd spent like 6 to 7 of the 9 years that I played in Rose. Like, I don't know why they view it as like he must be rooting for our failure, like he's betraying us, when that was never the case. So that was like more of a personal issue. But on top of that, like with them, the server for them having 200 plus members, it was the silence was deafening. There was very few channels that were active and had like fun conversation going on. There were hardly events that I would ever see myself pulled into. The applicants that had a hard time figuring out Discord and how to open tickets and stuff, they would mock them in their public channel. Like their Jordan, one of their high government, would mock them and just like react with sarcasm. And it's like, I don't know when this like holier than thou attitude became the norm, because like from the start, my whole thing with Rose was we wanted to be better than that, because at the time of founding, I had one guy who like very closely worked with me, and it was more like we co-led because we were both just constantly online, constantly doing stuff. His name was Adama. Me and him viewed Guardian and SK as like two elitists, you know, like they had this like highbrow attitude all the time, and we didn't want that. We were like, dude, it's like a game, like we want to have like a fun community of people that like are friends. Like we don't want them to feel like they're talking to their boss or their supervisor. And it didn't feel like that anymore in Rose. It just felt like you were, I don't know, like like you were joining like a job. And
yeah, it's more like a chore.
Like corporate almost, yeah.
It's definitely corporate is the word I would use for sure as well. For itself, like you said, it was pretty dead. Though I will say, if I am to believe people, it has improved. I don't know.
I've been told it's improved. I don't know. Like I don't know because I'm not there, but I have been told that it's.
But yeah, I don't want to turn this into a whole Rose Batman interview, but I will say that for the number one lines, it was very, very inactive. And you also said you were a founder of the Golden Horde, I think. Just trying to shift a bit over to that.
Yeah,
because
I was an advisor.
Okay, you were the first. That was the first installment of TGH, and then they end up disbanding and coming back later. But you didn't have any involvement in that, right?
Yeah, actually, I kind of admire how TGH is set up. Not necessarily that I want the same for TOC, because our membership makeup is quite different. But TGH reminds me of how a lot of the old alliances worked, where they're driven by Borhan. Like Borhan is their leader. It is his alliance. When he wanted to hang his hat, the alliance hung their hat. And to an extent, that reminds me a lot of the older alliances back in the day, because he led through all of MPO's last time. He stayed active the whole time. That war was almost a year long, and then he burnt out. He said, I need a break. Yeah. He disbanded. Like he didn't try and force himself to keep going. He didn't put someone else in charge. He was like, that's it, boys. And then 3-4 years later, he said, I'm ready to give it another go. And people returned. Had he invited me when they remade, I probably would have gone. He didn't invite me, so I joined them after I got mad at Dark Brotherhood, but I think he thought I was inactive, so he just didn't reach out.
Imagine the timeline. It's so many what ifs. But
yeah,
I mean, that's interesting. Yeah, I think I definitely see TGH as being more of an old school elite alliance as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've sacrificed some of their ideologies to maintain their competitiveness. Like, they've definitely taken in some questionable members at this point, and I don't think they're quite as like elite as they want to be on like an average depth level. But I think that they're paying that because they view it as like it's a necessary cost to stay relevant.
It's really unfortunate, but
it's kind of being forced. I mean, we're doing the same in CSC.
Oh, for sure.
We are actually recruiting a lot of new nations and small players because there's been so many power consolidations through merges that if you're a standalone alliance that doesn't want to just merge with another decent sized alliance, you got to kick it in a high gear, and you have to like put in the extra work to train all these new recruits and lower your standard for acceptance because you want to stay sizable enough to still matter.
The merges, I mean, it's not a hot take to say that the merges have been really bad for the game, but
yeah, to me they're a symptom that the game needs more. Like the the power consolidation is a concern for me.
Yeah,
100%.
I mean, I think a lot of people have voiced their concern about that, but I mean, it's not gonna change. But it's just
Well, and some of them,
Right?
like Spectre, I didn't feel like Spectre needed to happen. Like Dark Brotherhood and Legion of Dawn were fine on their own. They just felt like they weren't getting enough, so they decided to merge.
I mean, the same with Event Horizon, right? I mean, Event Horizon, CTO, Carthago, and Aurora were doing fine, I think. Just being small alliance, but they wanted to be like up there.
I guess,
And that's
but like
that also killed variety in the game. It's bad for the
those
game.
two
But
alliances weren't like top 3 though, and like EVH has maintained being top 3. With Spectre, like they went from like a rank 13 and a rank 18 to rank 9. Like it doesn't feel like they did that much of a jump.
I don't know, it's just a shame, really, all these mergers. And the same with Singularity, where Paradise and Cataclysm merged, and then they became one of the top alliances. But it's good for the alliance itself. It's just bad for the game overall.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That's true.
So I mean, I understand why everyone's doing it. I just don't like that it's happening, and it's the same thing with a lot of stuff, like with non-aggression packs. I actually want to briefly go into that as well in a second here. Might be a good segue. Because back in the day there were non-aggression packs, right? Or very short ones, if there were.
No, they were a joke. Like they were viewed as a joke. They were pretty much just like no one used them. They viewed it as like, if we're friends, like obviously we won't attack you. I don't see why. But now they're used as a tool to allow for alliances to get their return on investment. It's a safety net that they're giving themselves, which to me is dumb.
Yeah, let me actually ask the last thing. What do you think about this war? Your opinions on this war? Was it a fun war?
I didn't know. It's dragging out, and I think that I'm not in the peace talk, so I'm not really super involved. But from the sounds of it, the Rose's side is, I would imagine they're dragging it out so they can claw back their net. However, they're not really doing that. They're still losing net, so I don't really see the point of them.
Yeah, I looked at the stats as well. They're losing. They're taking 3 times as much damage at least than they're dealing.
Yeah, like it's not working out, and it's just boring for us because we'd rather like rebuild, and then like we have Gov announcements we've been sitting on and rolling, but we're waiting till the war ends, and it's all kind of being stalled from it.
I'm actually gonna cut the recording here in a sec then. Thank you so much for doing this, man.
And yeah, no problem. It was fun.
And actually being able to handle my lack of interview knowledge and just kind of winging it as we go.